It was an early summer afternoon, the kind where the sunlight glimmers off the water of my ranch reservoir, turning it into a mirror for the sky above. The farm was alive with the gentle hum of activity, cows grazing lazily, birds singing, and the occasional rustle of the wind through the trees. Yet, even in this serene setting, trouble was brewing. The HOA, in yet another display of reckless overreach, had decided to discard building debris directly into my reservoir. At first, I spotted it from a distance. A few planks, shards of concrete, and fragments of insulation floating near the surface. It was a blatant act of intrusion, a careless disregard for the property and ecosystem of my land. I felt a surge of irritation, not just for the mess but for the audacity of their behavior. They had no authority here. This was my water, my reservoir, my farm. Yet they proceeded as though entitlement could substitute for respect. I approached the scene calmly, documenting the debris for future records. It was important to remain methodical, to ensure that any response would be grounded in law, evidence, and strategy, not mere anger. As I walked along the edge, I noticed movement near the access point to the reservoir. The unmistakable presence of HOA officers, hesitating as they attempted to justify their actions. They had underestimated my awareness, believing they could dispose of debris without consequence. Before taking further steps, I allowed the leader of the HOA team to intervene. This was not out of courtesy but strategy. The presence of their leader forced a pause, a moment for reflection on the consequences of their actions. Hesitation crept into the faces of the crew. They began to realize that this was not a simple matter of cleaning up after themselves. They were violating property rights and risking both legal and personal accountability. I took advantage of their pause to establish control over the situation. I instructed the removal of debris under my supervision and implemented measures to prevent future dumping. Surveillance cameras were adjusted to cover the reservoir perimeter, and warning signage was installed to make clear the boundaries of permissible activity. Each step reinforced the principle that the reservoir was protected, both physically and legally, and that interference would not be tolerated. The incident revealed more than just HOA negligence. It exposed a pattern of disrespect and entitlement. They had treated my land as if it were communal property, ignoring decades of ownership, regulation, and stewardship. Their hesitation under the leader's watchful eye highlighted the effectiveness of authority and preparation, demonstrating that intervention, when properly executed, could neutralize potential conflicts without escalation. As the sun began to dip toward the horizon, casting golden hues across the water, I reflected on the day's events. The reservoir, once threatened by carelessness and arrogance, had been safeguarded. The land seemed to exhale, the water settling into calm ripples, the wildlife resuming their routines. The HOA crew departed, leaving behind only the faint memory of their attempted intrusion and the clear lesson that their overreach would meet organized, deliberate resistance. Later, as I inspected the reservoir under the fading light, I noted the resilience of my property, the careful design, the natural defenses, and the systems I had put in place to ensure its protection. Each tree, each embankment, each ripple of water served as a silent guardian of both the environment and the authority it symbolized. The HOA had come expecting to assert power, but they left understanding, in no uncertain terms, the limits of their reach. That evening, I made a record of the incident, noting the names of the individuals involved, the debris discarded, and the timeline of events. Preparation, vigilance, and measured action had once again secured my property and preserved the integrity of the reservoir. The HOA had learned, through hesitation and exposure, that recklessness on my land carried consequences. The lesson was subtle but enduring. Intrusion is not harmless, and authority assumed without respect or understanding is inherently fragile. As night fell and the farm settled into its natural rhythm, the reservoir gleamed in the moonlight, untouched and protected. I stood at its edge, feeling the quiet satisfaction of a domain intact, defended not through anger or confrontation but through awareness, strategy, and the unyielding assertion of what was rightfully mine. The HOA had tested my patience again, but the outcome was unmistakable. The farm, its water, and its legacy remained sovereign, secure, and unchallenged.